Welcome back to Free Media. I'm Robby Soave.
And I'm Amber Duke. President-elect Donald Trump told Fox News Digital on Monday that in order to make America great again, it is, quote, vital to have a free, fair, and open media. He went on to say that he feels he has an obligation to the American people to work with the press, even those who had treated him, quote, badly beyond comprehension.
Trump cited his meeting with Morning Joe co-hosts Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough, which we discussed in our previous segment. Check that out. Trump said many things were discussed, and I very much appreciate the fact that they wanted to have open communication. In many ways, it's too bad that it wasn't done long ago. So, Trump has had such a combative relationship with the mainstream media for so long. His level of sparring with the media is often one of my least favorite things about him because of course the media is going to be hostile to you. The media is also hostile to sometimes Biden and Obama and Bush and whoever. And I guess it's the job of the president to be mad about the kind of coverage he's getting or think it's too critical and unfair. And it's the job of the media to say that any and all criticism of them is censorship or something. But I guess nice to see that he's giving them another chance. But they should still feel free to be as critical of him as they want. It should just be fair and on an even keel or something.
Yeah, and that's the problem, and I have a different take on this than you. I think that he should not reward them with the same level of not even just access, meaning they get hard passes to go to the White House, but in the first administration, while he was sparring with the media publicly, behind the scenes, all of these same people who were writing fake news about him were invited to background briefings, were getting leaks from the administration. He was calling up Maggie Haberman of the New York Times to talk about whatever he wanted to talk about on any given day. And so he rewarded them for their bad behavior because he wanted so desperately to win them over, which I think was sort of a holdover from when he used to be beloved by the press back when he was just the New York real estate developer and reality TV star.
I guess it's his choice. I think it would be bad to retaliate against people for coverage you don't like, to take away their credentials. Certainly to target the broadcasting licenses, which did come up a little bit. It was I don't think they should do any of that.
Yeah, I'm not calling for revoking White House hard passes, but I'm saying that the posture towards the media should not be so open to bringing them into special briefings or giving them interviews and otherwise granting them privileges that, frankly, a lot of independent and conservative media did not enjoy during the first administration, despite covering the administration, I think, more fairly. If maybe, certainly there are some outlets that are, I think, a little too friendly to Republicans and Trump, in my opinion. But there were also a lot of conservative outlets that did great critical coverage of Trump, mostly from the right, that would get punished, whereas CNN and the Washington Post were like, hey guys, come back on in. We know you just covered the fake dossier and suggested that the P-tape was real, but we're going to bring you to our immigration background briefing. And then they would go off and they would write complete lies about the immigration policy, and then nothing ever changed. So I think that Trump, it's showing that they're allowed to do that. That it's beyond just being critical, but being unfair, publishing straight up lies, that gets rewarded is the wrong posture to take, especially considering he ran on this idea of, both in 2016 and now, of really upending the federal bureaucracy, the federal government in general. His transition picks have shown that he intends to make good on that promise. So why are we going to nominate people like RFK Jr., Matt Gaetz, Lee Zeldin for EPA, and then turn around and play nice with the media and play footsie with people who were, frankly, horrible, have no trust among the American people, have demonstrated that they're not interested in actually being truth tellers. They're really not even the media to me at this point because they've completely abdicated all responsibilities related to journalistic principles.
I think it's just important to have both. He can send in. J.D. Vance did a bunch of hostile interviews with mainstream media organizations over the course of the campaign. And while I often disagree with J.D. Vance in particular, he objectively did a good performance in those interviews. He keeps his cool. He improved his favorability ratings. He contrast that with Tim Walz, who did very few interviews, didn't come off well to nearly the same degree. And then Trump did the kind of podcast circuit very successfully. It's a funny story, right? It was that one staffer got a hold of Barron Trump, Donald Trump's son, and was like, I think he should do all the podcasts. And Barron said, yeah, that's a great idea. And it worked out very well for them because Trump excels in that kind of unscripted, longer, looser format. So what I would like to see, or I think would be a good idea for this second Trump administration, would be to include more independent-minded voices. Not because you're right, there is a conservative media. There can be criticism of Republicans from conservative media for failing on conservative principles, but in conservative media, there's a lot of just knee-jerk cheering of whatever happens. And I think you don't get as much of that in the more kind of independent or just personality-driven content creator empire.
Yeah, and this takes me right to my next point, which is one of the big things I would like to see in the second administration as well is an upending of the way the briefing room actually operates, because what a lot of people don't know is that the hard passes are controlled by the White House and the Secret Service, but the seating assignments in the briefing room are controlled by the White House Correspondents Association. And the WHCA has a history of freezing out.
It's a cabal,
right?
Let's be it's a cabal.
Yeah, it's a cabal aimed at propping up corporate media outlets that don't deserve the seats that they're given. And you watch these briefings and you think to yourself, okay, why are people asking the same question over and over and over again? And it's usually some like palace intrigue story that nobody in the American public actually cares about. They don't ask policy questions. Or they go in with their gotcha questions like Jim Acosta because he wants to get enough fodder to write a book about how he's so oppressed in the Trump administration. and they completely freeze out independent and conservative outlets, which are left to the aisles or are not even granted access at all. This was especially prevalent during COVID when there were limited seats in the briefing room. And so the only outlets that were allowed in on a regular basis were CBS, NBC, Fox News, all of the corporate outlets.
You don't remember the social distancing rule was that you have to sit 50 feet away from Jake Tapper such that no one else can be in the room?
Exactly, yeah. And then if you, like One American News legitimately got their their WHCA membership revoked because their White House correspondent, Chanel Rion, was invited personally by the Trump administration to go in and ask questions. And because she was standing in the back and wasn't granted a special assigned seat by the WHCA, they said, you're not allowed to play ball with us anymore.
This is triggering my pandemic PTSD.
I know. But the whole
horrible time.
The whole system from the WHCA is completely broken. It rewards bad faith corporate media, who also have the money, by the way, to send people consistently to the White House because one of the criteria is you have to be there like a certain percentage of the time to get yourself one of those seats. During COVID, you had to pay to get tested every single time you went into the White House. So those tests were like $150. If you're from an independent media outlet, you probably can't afford to pay $150 every day just for the pleasure of going in to the White House to do your reporting. So I would love to see maybe not the White House just taking over the WHCA, but something needs to change.
Yeah, I agree with that. We'll be back with more free media right after this.